Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to all. We have the agenda in front of us. Do we have any deletions, additions, corrections?
No, I just want to point out the addition of our monitor so that people can follow along in the audience with resolutions, reports, so on and so forth. Project implemented and completed by Eric Haynes, so thank you, Eric.
All right, very good.
Thanks,
All right, thanks, Eric. Seeing none, our first order of business is the sheriff's report and the monthly report. Lieutenant Carver, always a pleasure.
Good evening. See in front of you the report for February of 2019. Calls for service 1,641, 36% increase from last year. A slight increase in crashes up to 71. On the positive side, a decrease in the number of injury crashes. Alarms increased there as well, 222. Slight decrease in traffic stops compared to last year. I think as you look at crashes and calls for service, if they're spending their time in one place or the other, that kind of explains a slight decrease there. Citations are up. Arrests at 76, 7% increase. Vacation checks 751. Detectives report 14 assigned cases. Closed cases, 1 B&E resulted in 5 arrests out of that case. 1 burglary, 1 missing person, and 1 theft of a motor vehicle report. We move on to your next page, which is a comparison from 2014 to 2019. A general steady increase in the calls for service, as we would expect with increased staffing in the township. Just also general increased call volume. We move on, comparing February 2018 to February 2019. Significant increase in calls for service. The other categories still holding fairly steady. Not really any surprises in the numbers, what we would continue to expect them to be as we increase staffing in the township. Any questions from anyone?
No questions?
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I have something for you, not related to this, because I told the resident that I spoke to today that I would bring it up. There's an issue on 31st Street, and the Canton Park's just directly behind that.
Yes.
But I put a call into Doug Foltz, who's the park director at City of Canton. I'm waiting for him to call me back. But there's 4-wheelers now in the park, their park, not our park. But what's happening, the 4-wheelers are coming. They had, at one time, Canton City had signs up, no 4-wheelers, they didn't allow them in there. They take the signs down, she said, and now they're on 31st and 34th Street. 34th Street, they have boulders where they're jumping over. At the end of 31st Street, they have wood piles or wood cliffs, or not cliffs, ramps, wood ramps. So they're jumping on the ramps on her, and right at the end of her street. They're in their yards, backyards, front yards. She says she has called the sheriff. The sheriff's been cooperative. They've been showing up. But the hard thing is catching them, because by the time you make the phone call, they're gone. So I told her today, at least pinpoint a time when you know that they're there. And I also said, talk to some of the kids in the allotment. They may know who those kids are. And I said, we have a school resource officer. Maybe one of the kids, you can get connected to the resource officer. They can find out who these individuals are that are doing it. So right now, like I said, it's 4-wheelers, and she said it's a mess, and she said it's just constant in the yards, on the road, and then the park. Geez, we can't help, we can't do anyone there in Canton City Park, but maybe Doug Foltz from Canton City can do something for us there.
Is that down on the Maple land?
Yeah, it's at 1717 area, so that's.
Yeah, well,
down
that's
towards
Maple.
at the
No,
end.
that's definitely Maple.
Yeah, and I had some information forwarded to me yesterday that I believe is probably the same person that you spoke with. So obviously sharing the information with our guys, we need some patrols over there. Definitely have limitations as far as trying to get one of those stopped. And they're doing that kind of thing, obviously we're not gonna
So,
chase them through the park itself.
We
But
could
we
have
try to track where they're
township
coming from.
ATV sheriff's crew.
That's a good idea.
Can we get one now?
Yes. You
Put
want
me on
one?
as a reserve.
you know
That
what?
actually is a good idea for our parks too.
There you go.
So we
Chief-
do need to talk about that. If you're serious about that, that would be good for our parks
And
too.
you could dress up like a kid and get on like it's, like you're one of them and then find out who it is.
Well, I love you if you think I could be a kid.
But anyways, I hope that she'll call me back, give me a direct time, and I'll get back with you on that. And
Okay.
hopefully, when I talk to Doug from Canton, that maybe he could do something in their parks. And I told him, I said, we'll do our best, but
Yeah, and I left a message for her yesterday, and hope to actually connect with her. The big thing, we weigh chasing them versus the risk of their safety.
Oh,
versus everyone
absolutely.
else's
Oh, of course.
safety.
Do we know if they go north or south from there?
they're usually going from the ramps straight in, back into the park.
Right.
And then they cut through the yards, and then whatever that boulder on 34th, I'm not sure what they're doing there, but most of them end up back in the park, and then they disappear from there.
Okay.
Hopefully she uses the time, what's happening. And maybe the kids, I said, talk to the kids. Kids know who the other kids are. And the resource officer would be great at that. They would find out. And then once we find out the name, I said, then we really got something going for us.
Have you guys fielded any calls about break-in activity up here on the corner of Bentler and Easton back in, trying to think, what are all those side roads that like Jack Pierre Pond?
Grove,
Yeah,
let's see what
back
else
in
is
that
up
area.
there.
I'm asking because I'd seen somebody post something via social media that I'd seen, I'm like, hey guys, instead of just talking about this, hopefully somebody's contacting the sheriff's office, and a couple of folks were like, oh, great idea. So, I mean, there was like 3 or 4 people that had chimed in.
I would have to dig through
See if
reports
there's anything on
specifically,
radar.
but it's not been, where there's been a large number where I can say, yes, we've had a good number of reports over there. If we've had reports, it's been 1 or 2 here. and there.
Okay.
It's not been any significant increase that we've seen.
I've not seen anything in that area.
No.
Yeah, and this was just earlier this week. I'll see if I can find it. That's all I had.
Anything else?
No, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I'm gonna sneak out, I got another application, to leave you in Chief Oliver's capable hands.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just kidding you about the ATV. But yeah, we can get plenty of it.
You got my hopes up.
Yeah.
The ATV might not be a bad idea though,
Yeah.
given the acreage at our parks, you know, to get around the trails and so maybe that's something we'll talk about if we think it's a good idea.
It continues.
Yeah,
You don't have no problem putting them over here off Snyder or behind the station, do you?
not as of yet,
We never got calls there.
Yeah, at least nobody's saying anyhow.
yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have no unfinished business. That takes us to new business. And I will turn that over to you. In turn, we'll
Yes, well,
Rich
tonight we have Rich Roan with us from Stark County Soil and Water, and I just want to put on record, and I know Joe would agree with this, that we could not do our jobs with the EPA mandates and with the stormwater phase 2 without Stark County Soil and Water. Rich comes in and it's Rich. I want to give the clear acknowledgement to Rich. He does training for us. When there's any new rulings, he helps us. When we had some oil dumping, nobody would come out and help us, but Rich in a second was there, and that wasn't even part of their original contract with us. So to us, he is Stark County Soil and Water, and we would be lost without him. Tom can agree with that. When we've had other issues, we've been able to bring parties together. We call Rich. He takes care of it for us. So with that said, he and I were speaking about a memorandum of understanding that we've had for many, many years. And he brought up some ideas to increase that memorandum of understanding, some responsibilities, and I'll have him go over these changes, but every piece they take is something less hours and time consuming that we have to do, including paying an engineer probably close to $7-8 grand a year. So you'll see an increase in the contract, but it is a cost savings to the township. So with that, Rich, if you want to come up and talk to the board, and you have in front of you, he brought in the memorandum, and what's in red are a lot of additions that soil and water are going to do for us. What's in black is they're already doing. So with that, Rich.
Good morning or good evening, whatever this is right now. It's been a blur of a day. No, what me and Lisa and Joe and Sean, we all kind of sat down for a while and talked about different practices, different areas that the township is responsible for when it comes to the EPA program. What we looked at, we've been trying to rework some things. It's really a lot of these items you're seeing in red, we already are doing. For a lot of the communities, including you guys, and we want to make sure we stay there. When it comes to the EPA reports, different things like that, when we call out responsible parties. Right now, on certain things, unless we have an MOU agreement with you guys, we cannot be that responsible party. And what we want to do is make sure, hey, if something happens, we're going to be there. I mean, thank you, Lisa, for what you said. That's the way we try. I try to make sure everything in our office is running on our end. If you guys need something, we're gonna be here, swift, any way we can to help you guys with this. There's a couple, and I don't know if everybody has this, there's a one-page document that was here, I don't know if it was passed out. That goes through the 6 things that each community is responsible for that's within this program. And it goes, the top 2 really are education, public involvement. Number 3 is the illicit discharges, which Lisa was referring to, like the oil spills, things like that. It's also, there's kind of another nuance to that where it's dry weather screenings, things like that. So we're just checking our outfalls to make sure we are not having any discharges, anything like that happening. As we get into 4 and 5 there, that's the stuff we already are taking care of for you guys. That's where when we get plans for any size development, that any development that disturbs over 1 acre, that's being reviewed by me. We are working through that whole process with the engineers to come up with a master plan. And from there, we have a pre-construction meeting, and then we are inspecting, and Joe loves our inspection reports. I will say that. No, we have 2 really good inspectors that are out in the field. We have one we just started. We're trying to get him up to speed here right now, but we do bi-monthly inspections for the township. The EPA minimum is once a month. I can't even imagine going out to a site once a month and trying to see the issues. We go out twice a month. As you guys know, we've had a couple areas that we've really been involved with everybody right now with Saratoga Hills. I have spent more time there probably in the last 2 months than I can even imagine. We've been on site nonstop trying to get that through. We obviously knew there was a road closure, so we had to kind of back down a little bit to make sure we were getting things done the right way for the road to get it opened up for you guys. But on the other side, we had to work with that contractor and really push him to make sure we're getting what we want out of there, so we're not seeing any of the neighboring properties, running the issues. The last one is the pollution prevention and the good housekeeping stuff. That is stuff that's, really the responsibility kind of falls under like Joe's area for, any municipal facility that we have, vehicle maintenance done, oils, gases, fertilizers, any of that stuff. Those things are all kind of based on our, yearly road salt totals, everything like that. Going back to where we kind of jumped in and what we kind of offered probably 2.5 years ago, I brought our education specialist into the urban program a little bit. She was we brought her on, she was looking for looking for something to grab onto. We pulled her in. Lisa was grateful enough to kind of help us out really getting this thing moving. So we brought her in. My thought process was, hey, if we're doing education, let's give education to the community so we can, we're going to supply this. We're going to be in the schools, we're going to be in the townships doing rain barrel workshops, all that stuff. Why are we not giving that stuff back to you guys? So we started that, like I said, probably 2.5 years ago. All of our workshops now that we get, we actually have everybody, when they register, we find out what township or what municipality they're from. All those numbers are kept, in our pocket. End of the year, we provide all that stuff back. I think we have
testing your soil
coming up.
Mm-hmm. And that's a hugely popular one because you bring in your own piece of soil to test it to see what are the needs that you need there.
And we break it down for them for like gardening, different things like that, yard work.
Really
yeah, and kind of break it, and it's awesome. I mean, we've already I think we have a full house already. I mean, it filled up super quick, which is what we want to see. All these people so what we end up doing in our numbers is we have this set up. It's obviously being held by Plain Township, so you guys are getting credit for this with the EPA. All of the residents that are coming in from Plain Township, we're taking those numbers and showing, and this is across the board, all of Stark County. Any Plain Township resident that comes in, we are taking all them totals and showing, hey, we had this many participants within Plain Township. So we are showing all these things, and we want to make sure we continue to do that. At this time, we are not, we cannot be a responsible party to help out. So that's why we wanted to kind of offer the service to you guys and say, hey, we're coming to the table, we want to bring some education, obviously we have, the markets, things like that we attend. We want to make sure we're continuing to be there. We're going to be partners with you guys on this and help with that stormwater education, all your residents.
And that takes hours and hours and hours of work off Joe and I's table, of areas that we're not the experts in, but we have been providing that information. It alleviates a lot of work. And I know you're getting to the bottom issues, which are even more work that you're helping us with.
For sure. The next one down there, the third bullet point, is for illicit discharges, and this is kind of going back to the oil spills. Right now there is some conversations going on. I think Stark County Health Department has stepped out of this role.
Yes, they have.
It's a couple of years ago, I remember getting an email from Lisa. What are we going to do? It was going crazy. So we kind of set up some meetings. We are going to have a full-fledged meeting with trying to get all of our communities together to figure out an action plan, because right now the action plan we have in place, it's not there. As soon as we get looked at, as soon as there's an audit done, it's going to come to the table. And the EPA already knows this because we have some drop-offs. So this is where we're coming in and we're going to say, hey, we can at least assist. If we see an illicit discharge, if somebody is discharging, I will personally be on site tracking this to figure out what's happening. We can get up, and it's easy usually is knocking on the door and talking to somebody. I mean, it's a lot of times it's just stupid situations, or somebody's just not educated on what's happening, or they don't even know what's happening in their own home. Something as simple as their washing machine's tied into their sump pump. So next thing we know, we see a whole bunch of soap suds running down the middle of a creek or discharging out to the street.
You've seen those before,
Yeah.
Joe?
We see all that fun stuff.
Many
So,
times.
yeah, and it's just going up, knocking on the door and trying to get it going. But this gives us a little bit more push with having an agreement with you guys, where if we do see it, we get somebody that's a little combative, we can step in and enforce, some of our regulations, or some of the state regulations, where we're not pulling, Joe or the street department or the parks department into the middle of this. We're gonna step in and help. I'm not saying obviously we're not the big dogs, but we have a direct link to the EPA. We can pull them in if we need it. Like I said, the next three, the ones in black, are situations that we're currently doing for you guys. That's both, obviously the active construction sites for MCM4, post-construction sites. Currently, I think we have roughly about 45 sites within the township that I inspect on a yearly basis for detention basins, bioretention cells, any of this stuff. Obviously, you guys know the growth in the township. It is constantly going up every day. So those things are, we're monitoring for you guys, making sure we're reaching out, talking to the HOAs, make sure they're educated on these issues, so they're not coming back to the township saying, hey, you guys gotta take care of this. We're jumping in, we're working with them. We have long-term maintenance agreements in place where they know they are the responsible parties, and we're working with them to make sure everything is handled through there. As we get down to the next one is assisting. We are currently, obviously in an audit stage right now with the EPA. We just finished one with the city of Louisville, and they had 2 of their facilities required to have a SWIP, which is a stormwater pollution prevention plan for their facility. Instead of them going and hiring their engineering firm and going crazy and spending upwards of $10,000 to $15,000, I sat down, I helped them develop one. I developed one full-fledged, gave it to them, we passed it on to the EPA. EPA approved it, it went. With you guys, we just recently did your yard waste.
Recently did one for our yard waste, and again, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars that it would have cost us.
So, I went over, we met with Joe, and me and Sean went to the site, we looked at it, I put up a map, pulled everything together, put a full plan together for you guys. So if the EPA does come in, we know it's there. These things just need to be quarterly inspected. Kind of jumping down a little bit, the next one is where, for all your facilities, what I would like to do for you guys is jump in with Joe, jump in with Sean, even Rob, even the fire department, any of your facilities that have these things, I will personally come out and we will make sure we will do a yearly inspection on
And
those.
that's another thing we were paying a couple $1,000s for an engineer.
I will walk through, we will make sure everything is, spick and span, it's good to go in case we do get an audit, then we're covered. That report will be filed. It'll be filed within our, our annual, our yearly report to the EPA, so we'll make sure that's in there. It's signed off by, the district and things like that. Going from there, the completion of your guys' annual report.
Which was upwards to $4,000 a year that we were paying an engineer. Because it's time
very
intensive. It's super intensive.
Right now, I take care of 3 parts of that. We take care of obviously everything under, each one of these areas, these 6 areas called out, that's a different area of the report. 4 and 5, I take care of that stuff. I was sending it over to your guys' contract, letting them fill it in. The next step with, down there with the pollution prevention, there's one thing which we were talking about, the training, where I conduct the yearly training with that, so I fill all that stuff in for you guys, so it's there. So, to me, it's easier if it's in one hand. I work, obviously work with Joe all the time. We can get all this information pretty quick. We will put this in there, and we will make sure it's submitted in the right, the right manner. The very last one is, or I guess I missed one in there, assisting with, if you guys get an audit.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
no matter what's being audited, if we're responsible or not responsible, I will be sitting in the room with you guys to help you to get out of that. So, we have a direct link. I talk to the EPA on a weekly basis. We know the area people, everything like that, so they will be sitting with me. We will know what's coming. We will make sure, I will do an initial visit, everything like that, to make sure it's good. We will walk the site with them. If there's any issues, we will help you guys get out
We
of those
will
issues.
get audited.
It will. It
I mean,
will
it's
happen.
coming, we just don't know when.
It's a
But
surprise.
that's
It's gonna be within this
invaluable
5
to
years.
Joe and I to have Rich there with us, because again, he knows the people. He knows what to look for at a pre-site inspection. He'll be there walking us through. Yeah,
Yeah, they're knocking on the door right now.
hopefully before Joe retires. Cheer me up.
You're coming back for it.
But those are the big changes to the agreement, and they are huge changes. It saves Joe and I and Sean time, effort, money, stress. When, we had the oil dumping, it was Joe and I out all day because we couldn't get anybody, the health department, to come, but we called Rich, who was there in a second. So the people at the EPA know Rich, they respect him. I'd rather have Rich doing this than, an engineer who's not invested in Plain Township. So, again, Rich, thank you so much. This really, Joe and I have been celebrating ever since you presented it to us. Does the board have any questions?
Rich, she just mentioned oil drop-off, so on some of these stormwater pollution, is there drop-off sites? Because I know people have
Yes.
old gas and
Yep.
oil in.
We are trying to get a full schedule together right now. Our office is working towards that. We just recently hired an education specialist and a district technician to kind of step in. One of his jobs right now is he's trying to pull together, all these Amity days, that we see across the county in general. And we are trying to publicize those and show, hey, these are the locations. Because usually they have one once a month somewhere in the town, somewhere in the county. So we're trying to get that stuff, and once we get that, we'll obviously pass that along. So it can be going. Everybody knows. I think we have, or was I just, Lawrence Township is getting ready to have one. I want to say in May. The township trustees, I just met with them last night. I know that's coming right down the line. We're working with them on that a little bit to help them get that put in place. So there's a lot of different things. So yeah, we try to go that route and see, because we get, the numbers, and then there's some different things I gave you guys can look at later. It's the old, the current MOU that's in place. Then I also put some of the numbers in that we just did this year. I think this year, off the top of my head, I think it was like 85, reviews that we did for you guys this year.
Oh, yeah.
Over 200 inspections that were done, within the township this year on active sites, and then, multiple other things. I don't even register, the calls that we get, for different things like that. We want to make sure, when we get, I talk to Tom all the time, we try to work things out, we make sure we're getting there. If we see wetland issues, things like that, Tom has been absolutely awesome. If we see some things, we'll pass it along, we work back and forth, the same with Joe, same with Sean, Lisa, Rob will reach out. We have different things, so we work obviously very well with you guys, and we keep that moving. But these are things, drainage complaints, things like that. And I'm sure you guys have probably heard through the grapevine right now. Our office is in the process of taking over possibly the whole ditch program within the county.
God bless you.
They must hate you.
The ditch
I think the county must hate you for doing that.
It's
It's massive, and I hope Soil and Water is hiring lots of people.
for some weird reason, this is going to be, I guarantee, thrown on our shoulders. So we'll see.
I just don't know how you can.
No.
Wow, that's huge.
No,
And that's the problem. Is I think there's just not an understanding.
no, of what's all
Office,
involved.
what is actually is they expect. They're changing some things around. The county obviously, talking prematurely, but the county figured out what was being done with these ditches was incorrect. It was against the Ohio Revised Code, going within people's private properties, things like that. So now what's gonna happen is what we've heard is like a petition petition process. We are gonna be the first call, so we are gonna get all the complaints, we are gonna go out, we are gonna take, look at it, we are gonna give people, kind of some recommendations, hey, you can possibly do this, do this, do this, to help alleviate it. If you don't, there's gonna be a petition that you have to go through the commissioner's office and take care of it. From there, we are supposed to be pulled out of it.
Oh, well, that's better.
Interesting.
It's a little better, I mean, it's.
So are they thinking there's gonna be a better channel for grant dollars to be able to pull that off? Because
Yeah.
he did mention, Commissioner Raitler was there talking about that issue.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and they had to pretty much pull their entire process when they believe that it's not legal for them to go on that property and even do that.
Correct, and it's, just yesterday, I stopped over and seen Joe real quick on my way through, and while I was sitting here, I walked out and I had a call from Jackson Township, because right now they currently have 3 projects that are ongoing that got shut off at the end of last year.
Oh, yeah.
And, where do all these projects stand? And that's, we are meeting with Brant Luther on Friday for some of these questions, and it's like, the thing is, stuff that's coming in fresh, we'll be able to deal with. It's these ongoing issues that we don't know about, that's gonna blindside us, and I think that's what's gonna take time, to get through. And, and my biggest thing, first and foremost, when I sat down with both Brant, with the commissioners, with my boss, and I said, hey, what we have to look at, if we're gonna be this head person, and we're gonna be going through, we cannot ruin our relationships with you guys. It's like, hey, we have built these relationships with our townships for them to understand this is gonna be a separate program, because if I gotta walk in the door and you guys are trying to do a petition ditch, and I tell you, hey, too bad, we're not gonna do it, that's gotta reflect the right way. And it's like, we cannot, all this needs to be publicized, what is actually able to happen. And, that needs to be done on the upper end. But, we'll see where this goes. It's obviously in negotiations, and we're gonna see where we stand with it. I think right now, we're kind of their last line of defense.
I know our township association, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're putting together some movement to approach Muskingum watershed.
Yeah, I think we are involved.
To say, hey, wait a minute, you're collecting a certain amount of money here.
That's right.
How about channeling some of this back locally to take care of some of this stuff that, is gonna flow a little bit better, make a little more sense, so.
I think Mark has reached out and talked to my boss.
Oh, good.
Because he reached out and
Good.
talked to me, and I was
Yes.
like, hey, that's gotta go to our
Good.
board, so that's gotta go that direction. So they're
Just
working.
approved the language,
Mhm.
the language revision at our last meeting, so.
Yeah, and I think that's been shipped over to us and everything there, so we're obviously gonna get our board behind it and feel, hey, we're gonna push for you guys. I mean, obviously, we wanna see that, we wanna see all this money come back and stuff, and be used correctly. So, no, but that's it. But yeah, I mean, the one quick thing I wanted to say, we have the new, what this is doing is, the reason why this is running out, in September, we have you guys will be applying for a new permit with the EPA. September 11th, I think, is the deadline for the current permit we're in. It'll finalize, and then we'll go into the fourth phase with the EPA. I was in a meeting back in February up in Richfield with all soil and waters from all of Northeast Ohio, all communities, all that stuff. And what was really good, it was really awesome about it, we're sitting there and they're giving the proposed changes. They're not even sure this is the high level, this is gonna be the most we're gonna do. As we sat there and we listened to them, I was able to put a check mark by every single one. We already have these handled. We are ahead of the game 110%. We were talking to like the Cuyahoga Soil and Waters, the Lake Soil and Waters, they were flipping out. They're like, how are we gonna get all this done? They were looking at me, I'm like, we're done. We have it placed, what you guys did a couple months ago, approving the water quality regulations. That's a big one where everybody's struggling on. I think I spent 19 months working on those, trying to get those to a T. So once the new permit came out, I was able to adjust a couple things and pull them in. And the group, those were only accepted by our townships and a couple municipalities in the past. Right now, we're working, we might actually have all 18 communities that we work with that are under the MS4 program to accept these regulations, which, needless to say, is a lot easier on me when I'm working off one regulation instead of these ones, the City of Canton's, the City of Alliance, the City of North Canton. We're gonna have one massive regulation that covers the whole county. So the same thing that's happening in Canton will be the same requirements that are here, which are nice. So we tried to work that out, but all them requirements that the EPA is gonna throw down on us this coming September, we are already handled. We are ahead of the game, we are ahead of the curve, which, obviously is just a blessing for all of us, so.
And I'm sure these are all unfunded mandates.
They are.
Yeah.
Correct.
All the
Yeah.
It's in Washington.
They are.
Anything else?
No, with that said, I have a resolution by the Blaine Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to enter into an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding for Technical Assistance between Blaine Township and Stark County Soil and Water Conservation District. It's effective for a period of 5 years to authorize payment to Stark Soil and Water for the conservation appropriation in an amount not to exceed $10,000 from Fund 01A28D.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion?
The savings that we're gonna reap over this 5-year period is, we're talking thousands and thousands.
That's the
I mean,
quality of help we're going to get.
Yeah.
It's going to be second.
Well, and it's already obvious that you've already established a lot of relationships and connections, that obviously that communication process is
Yeah.
working good too, so that only helps us.
No, for sure.
So-
That's-
He always answers his phone, guys.
I know.
So,
Yeah, I've called him, he's been right on the spot for me, he called me right back, right away too, so.
And then I can sign
Nice
the
to
agreement,
talk.
but I'll sign 2, send them to you, you sign 2, send me 1 back.
Gotcha. We will have, our next board meeting, I think, is April.
It's April something, I have it
Yeah, it's
written down.
April 10th, I think it's
Yeah.
11th, somewhere in there. So once we have that, these will be put in front of our board members, our board chair will sign it, I will make sure a copy is given back to you. It will be retroactive to, we will talk about that.
Yes.
I want to make sure, once we sign this, it's obviously going to be
Yeah.
correct, and we'll have everything set up that way,
Yeah,
so.
now we do have an out clause in it, because my concern was if Rich would ever leave, we would want to look at a different setup, so
He can't
you
leave.
can't leave.
We're not
But
gonna
we
let that
did
happen.
specifically put
Unless we
the,
hire him to come work.
we did put the out clause in there for that purpose, so.
anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Okay,
thank you
Yes,
for your
thank
time.
you.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
And that
Get
ends
over
new
that track
business.
meet.
Yes, right in the track meet.
Eric,
It's that time of the year. Okay, so that takes us to the fiscal officer's report. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of penny warrants in an amount of $449,543.50.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the bank reconciliation for February. If there's any questions, I'll be available after the meeting. Fiscal Officer number 5 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
I will move on fiscal officer number 5.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments for EMS as requested by Ohio Billing.
I will move on fiscal officer number 6.
Second it.
Moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for resolution to authorize the additional benefits of longevity pay to members of the Utility Workers Union of America, AFL-CIO, Local 561, who meet the requirements of the attached schedule effective April 1, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Yeah, I've got a question, looking through this. I know some of these folks haven't been in the road department or under the road contract for as long as, they actually get payment for the years of service, even if it's not, while it's in the road contract, while it's under the road contract. So if I come from any other
I can't
department,
answer that, I don't know.
because that's, I'm telling
That
you,
is-
there's 3 or 4 folks in here.
Yeah, I see that, and I
That
don't,
doesn't
that's the
make
first time I've
sense to
seen
me.
it. I don't know.
I mean, your years of service while you're falling under the contract, but not, I mean, if I was administrative, so I'm saying it's showing, I use an arbitrary number, 13 years, but I spent 8 years in administration,
Well, I would,
and then I've only got 5 years in road, but yet it's saying 13
I
on.
would say the
13 on
longevity
here.
falls under the road union contract, years of service, because under non-contract, it was frozen, and both of these people would have been at 0. So why don't you, well, you have to by the contract. You have to get it done by a certain date. Any opinion from the law director? 'Cause we
I was looking
can't-
at contracts first time.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I know you can't have 2 hire dates, so you can only have 1 hire date. Well, something by state law.
But aren't they hired at a certain date, and that, you hired them again, and that, when you hired them for that
Sick leave
position?
and vacation purposes, it
No,
goes to
not
their
sick and vacation,
original
no.
date of hire.
Yeah, but this is different.
Yeah.
When we hire people from the part-time ranks and volunteer, it only counts full-time years of service,
Correct.
but I don't know about if you're switching departments, you know,
We're
it
all
seems,
full-time in
Yeah.
another department.
yeah, so.
Yeah, I know exactly what he's saying, and I think there is some difference, but again, that would go back to,
The contract's written, does it count all years of Oakland Township service, or?
I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm probably looking at, here's a couple $100, but still a couple
Yeah,
$100
still,
of
yeah,
taxpayer money.
I
That
see what he's saying.
if you're not, I mean, you're not represented by that contract for those entire terms, you shouldn't technically be recognizing a benefit for that accrued
Is that something you need to look into, Mr.
value of
Director?
time.
Well, I haven't heard, I think she's grabbing a contract.
Can we
It's
table?
spelled out in the contract. I'll look
Can we-
at the
Let's
letter.
table
Table
this.
it, move on, and
I'll make a motion to table fiscal officer number 7.
I will second, and we did not take a vote on that first one, so we should be
We'll just
okay.
have to make a motion to bring it
Yeah.
back to the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Fiscal officer number 8 is the investment report for the month of February.
Are you still discussing it?
No.
We tabled it right now.
Okay. Good with it.
Me too.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, and then once we get that, we can come back to that then. So let's, or do you wanna wait, can you read that fast?
No.
That's pressure.
That's what I thought.
He's good, but.
Yeah, I know you're good.
Pressure.
but that is-
All right, so that takes us to the administrator.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Campbell.
This evening, I will be discussing our yard waste recycling. We have been, of course, inundated with phone calls about yard waste. Regardless of when we had the grant or when it was just taken care of Stark Soil, or by the, what's the word?
Joint solid.
Yeah.
Joint
joint,
Solid Waste
yeah.
District. We typically haven't opened until March. However, we have had.
In May.
May, sorry.
May.
We have had a season where, of course, we've had numerous storms, and we did open for those storms. We had leaves dropping very late, and there's still leaves in people's yards based on the weather. And so in discussions with the board, what I had proposed was, and you don't need a resolution, is opening Saturday, April 6th, 3 days a week, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday from 8 to 6, which are our normal hours. At least through April, and then what we need to do is, we only have so much money regardless. So we'll have to evaluate, let's see how much is coming out in those couple new months, and then maybe there's a brief summer shutdown, because at that time, it's just grass clippings. And you can compost those, or you can, Joint Solid Waste District told us to tell people to put it in their trash. But that way, maybe we do an early spring, look at a summer shutdown, if, depending on the funding, because the big season, of course, is fall.
Well, I think what the public needs to understand is, just based upon some of the comments and calls that have been received either into the offices or to ourselves directly, we are homeowners, we are gardeners, we know full well what's going on. The reality of the matter is, we've been a host site, as have been a number of other communities for years, where somebody else has funded that. It's not like we've just pulled the plug on our own funding, but at the end of the day, every one of these folks needs to understand, if we get late into the year, and based upon general fund constraints, they may have to find private enterprise. I mean, Earth and Wood has said that they would take it, you know, for a small fee. And at the end of the day, as much as we want to provide as many services as possible, is realistic from a cost aspect. It's also a cost of home ownership.
And this does come, if we go over the allotment, it does come from the general fund. And I've instructed everybody who gets a complaint, phone call, to give them the Joint Solid Waste District number also, and to call, because that's who needs to hear it. We get it, I'm with these homeowners, I get it.
Well, especially in light of our volume numbers.
And the
The
reduction,
funding not being reflective of our actual
yeah, the
percentage
whole
and
site
volume and so
closing,
forth.
correct.
I'm telling you what, you can't even open that gate down there to get in there.
Chuck opened it
Chuck had it
today
happen
for
yesterday.
training, or yesterday, and somebody came right in.
It's like they're sitting out there waiting for that gate to be opened.
And we have no guarantees that those
And then he
people
yelled
are
at
even
Scott Chuck.
township
Of
residents.
course not, and nor can we ask that, because we're
Exactly.
taking the $80,000 in.
No, you're right. I'll bet 4 people approached me after we opened for that weekend after the storm and said, so is the dump site open now?
And it
No.
was never
No,
open
it was
yet,
just,
but,
you know, so
yeah.
there's a lot of people that,
Some realistic
You know,
expectation
Yeah.
setting needs to.
We do.
but I'm in favor
Yeah, I
of
am.
these
Yeah.
dates opening now. I don't think we need to do that by resolution.
No, you
We
don't,
just
no.
do that with
But, you know,
Jessica, could you be so kind
Yes,
as to make sure we get those?
Saturday,
Thank
you
April
very much.
6th, Wednesday,
For,
Saturday, and Sunday, 8 to 6.
For me as a trustee is one, and I'm gonna cautiously say this, because they are two separate issues, but our general fund it's possible that it could get freed up. It's possible if our levy park levy. Now, these are two separate issues, so I don't want to say, confuse our residents. Wow, they're talking, but I'm just saying as one trustee, I'm open to the idea that if it were to pass, if our general fund is freed up, I'm open to the idea of possibly looking at something similar to what Jackson has done, because we'll have that money freed up over, what, $1 million we're looking at?
Close to
And possibly,
700,000.
then we're maybe looking maybe at 30,
That's
40.
that's
And they're,
still a revenue.
and I'm cautionally saying that, because they're two separate, but I'm just saying that I'm open to that idea, because this thing is crazy, but I have
People
so
love
many
this
people
more than
tell me.
any other
It's funny,
service.
I get yelled at, residents yell at me, what do you mean you're closing that? Well, we don't have any control, we're sorry, we're doing our best. We're working really well to keep it open now, and don't yell at us, it's first of all.
Don't kick a gift horse in the mouth.
Correct.
I think there's some creative things that we can do by
So,
still taking the money, the funding from the county or from the solid waste district, and yet providing some additional perks to our own residents. You know, that knowing full well that whatever they bring is residents' yard waste, not, you know, contiguous township yard waste.
Yeah, but trustee Lino brings up a good point. This can't even be discussed
No.
until,
No.
hopefully when the levy passes.
No.
Levy passes, then there are some opportunities to
It's very possible,
look at that.
yes.
So,
And these discussions, believe me, I mean, these guys have been on the board longer than me, but I sat in that chair over there for 17 years, knowing full well that the same discussion we're having right now has been going on
yes.
that whole time
You have to say.
for this.
The sad part is that, I don't say this begrudgingly of the fire department or of the sheriff's office, and I semi-heartedly joke, but I always said, if that thing got shut down there would be pitchforks and flames after us. They would be more concerned
It's
about that.
true. No, you're right.
It's just, it's bad,
You're right.
bad alignment of
Yeah.
expectations, what should
100%
really be
right.
a priority. It's crazy.
It is crazy. You're right, trustee Hall, you're right. on
But
that.
again, we will keep track of the finances and possibly,
We'll
Something.
reevaluate consistently.
yeah, we'll have to reevaluate it and go from there, so. With that, that is the end of the administrator's report, and thank you to the board for agreeing
Yes,
on
no,
the
thank you for
opening.
seeing that we need to at least readjust that just for the sake of, maybe just giving a little bit back for the service.
Yes.
All right, that takes us to Fire Chief Schallenberger.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1 is our monthly report.
Doesn't look fun looking at that stuff, does it, in front of the station?
It's probably-
And I'm hoping that's the last
Yeah.
still picture I got.
Is that the
here,
last,
so.
no picture?
Road's
maybe?
clear.
The road is clear.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And that's the completion of the sewer project.
Also, and then,
So,
nothing to do with monthly report, but I was gonna ask the sheriff too, you guys are doing some training over these 3 days, right?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. We have a joint project with the sheriff's office. They started their first program today down there with Opata, who's the training coordinator. And we have, I think there's 3 or 4 from the Stark County Sheriff that are in it, and then some other agencies. So, and then we're gonna do a drill with them Thursday,
Good.
combined.
Good. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's
That
a good
just,
thing that you mentioned.
any questions for Chief Schallenberger? On monthly report? Okay, let's go to our sewer issue.
Yeah, so, item number 2 is a resolution to authorize payment to Stark County Metropolitan Sewer District for tap-in fees for Station 4 sewer project at 7858 Market North, not to exceed $2,050, and taken from Fund 21A02K.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
I think that Chuck has done a great job as our sanitary sewer engineer.
See, it's like herding cats on
Yeah.
some of these details.
That's the last fee that I know of as far as the actual hookup, a lateral scheduled for the week of April 8th.
He's available to hire for other communities.
You're gonna
On
have
a subcontract. right?
Subcontract.
you're gonna have a ceremonial thing that you're gonna.
We're gonna, you guys are doing a ribbon cutting
Yeah.
of the sewer.
Okay, the toilet.
Anything
Yes.
else? Yeah, I didn't say that. I was thinking. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, and item number 3 is a resolution to authorize purchase and payment of 1 storage container from Discount Storage Container in the amount not to exceed $2,050 taken from Fund 10A06.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? You're doing some joint stuff.
Yeah,
with
just the road
Yeah.
department is looking for a place to store some of their straw, to get it out of their way up at the garage. Obviously, there's animal issues and stuff that kind of get into that. We'll be able to provide a little more airtight thing, and then we use it for the burn building for straw.
It's perfect.
So it kind of combines some stuff, and,
Good.
so hopefully get some problems moved from them, and then help us too at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
good. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 4, we had a meeting with the Hall of Fame Marathon, and about 4 or 5 months ago, they obviously came to the township. They're moving part of the race. The one on the computer is the overall map. I made you a smaller map of what actually is impacting the township, the streets of the township. And the map shows it's basically a double back. They go out all the way to Whipple, and then they double back going towards 17th Street in the Hall of Fame area. So what's on your the handwritten map, I guess you'd say, or copy map, is the township impact. The one on the screen up above is actually the whole race. It's just kind of hard to see all those streets on their map, so I tried to make it a little smaller scale on where it impacts us.
And I have to say, a huge thank you to Lieutenant Carver, who got us back into communication with the marathon, that they had met 5 months ago, but we hadn't heard anything from the marathon since. They told Lieutenant Carver everything was great with us. We hadn't touched base since then, so a huge thanks because he got everybody back at the table.
Awesome.
Where does that start, Joe?
It actually starts at the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And then they go like through the park system, down to Canton, and then eventually they loop back up to by us.
Does
I'm
it end
just-
at Hall of Fame too?
Yes.
Probably will, yeah. So like what I'm thinking logistically for our neighborhood, that's obviously on a Sunday. It's gonna be in or about time, people are gonna wanna be getting out to go to church or wherever.
Yeah.
But I think the good news for that is this race is gonna be so spread out by then
Oh,
that they should have no problem being able to get out of their drives and, you know, make that flow through there. And as long as they advertise this, because those people in a lot of these areas are already accustomed to the MRDD run.
Right.
right.
So,
Good point.
you know, they already know when that race is
Yeah.
coming through,
Yes,
so.
that's good.
One of the big stickers that we thought we found was 20th Street area. After talking with them, we're probably gonna have to close 20th Street at Whipple. If you're familiar with that area, there's a big hill going down.
Oh,
Lake
yeah.
Heights, it's
Yeah.
the line,
Yeah,
and they're crossing Lake Heights.
oh, that's a
Where would you
blind
close
spot
those?
coming.
All of 20th?
Yeah, if you're
We're
traveling,
gonna have to, more than likely, because there's
'Cause
no
of the
other
hill?
side streets to get anywhere.
yeah, if you're traveling east off the
Myers
Whipple,
Lake.
there could be some site problems there.
And it doesn't sound,
That's true.
like the sheriff's office sounds like they're gonna man all the checkpoints and all the, as of right now, that's how it sounds. They wanna borrow some barricades and stuff, but maybe, we might not even have to get them cones.
What would
The
you the
marathon
closure
they bought.
of that road?
I will provide the materials to close it, the sheriff, Lieutenant Carver said they take care of it all. As of right now, unless he can't get the people there that he's anticipating.
Well, we're gonna do exactly what we did before when we ran the marathon, is that, just like you said, people wanna get out and go to church, there's no runners coming, we're gonna get them out.
Oh,
Nice.
So
Yeah.
that's exactly what we've done before.
Yep.
And, you know, if you got a herd of runners coming, you let them go by, then you get the people out. Because that was our biggest fear in the past. And it all worked out good.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, they actually go out through the township and then back the same route. So they're gonna, so it shouldn't be a big duration of time that they're actually.
Sure, they're gonna be spread out.
He did say his numbers are
Oh,
down.
yeah, yeah.
He did say his numbers are down. That they raised the cost considerably from what it was.
People have a lot of bad knees now.
All right, very good.
And then the letter there is showing that that's what they're gonna give the homeowners along the track, or the course, the first letter you see there, that they'll be sending out, they're supposed to do it twice, right?
Twice.
Marathon.
Two, hand delivered, knock on the door kind of stuff,
Yeah.
so hopefully, good. That concludes fire department.
Okay, thanks Chuck. That takes us to road. Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is the monthly report for February. You can see we had a pretty big month.
You wanted to show the snow, that's what you
Is there a reason wrong with it? We got yelled at for cutting those roads down one time.
I think we should have pictures of beet juice or something.
I know. Or Joe eating these.
Yeah, they never gonna have it, I can't stand it.
He makes those guys smash them up there with their
He
feet.
does, it's
Yeah.
like making wine, but
We
instead
do it-
it's
that's
beets
what we
and
do
they're
when
in
it's
there.
raining. Yeah,
Yeah.
we fill a tank of it.
Yeah, they're in there stomping them like Lucy.
All right, any questions?
There's a lot going on
All
there.
right, number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Iowa, to authorize the purchase of a new 2019 Case 621G extended reach wheel loader through the state term from Southeastern Equipment, not in the amount of $156,827.16, less $32,000 for the trade-in of the 2003 John Deere 544 Loader, total amount of purchase is $124,827.16.
I will so move.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. So the loader that we're trading is like 15, 16 years old.
Yes.
We can't even get that much money for a 16-year-old fire truck.
No,
No,
That-
when I seen that, we couldn't have sold that online or anything.
No.
that's how
I don't
good
think
Southeastern
we could.
is to us, though.
And this new loader has a longer reach, which we need down the yard waste, because when they bring in the trucks, we can hardly reach to get those loaded. And it's got a bigger bucket on it. We went to a 3-yard bucket, so.
Bigger bucket,
Yeah.
Mhm.
nice. And you have to retrain everyone on this because they're all different.
Yeah, it's just a lot of similar, they'll all get in it and just try it, you know.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
That's pretty
Yeah, it
big.
is.
And item number 3 is a resolution to authorize the purchase of brushes for street sweepers from United Rotary Brush Corporation, not to exceed the amount of $4,025.88.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to zoning. Mr. Ferrara.
Thank you, sir. First item on the agenda is the monthly report.
That's a fancy
How
one.
nice that looks.
Yeah.
That's my addition on my home.
When you didn't get a permit for?
Right.
That's Chuck's container.
Oh my gosh. It is.
Just as a point, are the total receipts for 2019 impacted based upon the skills game?
That's correct.
Yeah.
No new construction,
But on a plus, that is beginning to pick up.
Okay.
We got a lot going on in Richmond right now.
Okay, next.
Second item on the agenda is a resolution to authorize a refund in the amount of $502.80 for a Board of Zoning Commission application that was withdrawn prior to the meeting being held.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 3 is a resolution to declare item A as a nuisance abatement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
And that's all for zoning, sir.
Thank you. That takes us to parks. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is the monthly report. I'll draw your attention to the picture in the top left corner.
What? What is it?
Yeah.
These are some of the,
So there's this big art thing down there that you can go in and it takes your picture and it comes out with all these 3D
Oh
wild.
my gosh. That's pretty cool.
God bless the mother-in-law process.
Yeah.
That was in the trade show.
that was the
But it
picture.
got people to their booth.
That was in Safety Congress, and I took a picture of it and sent it to my mother-in-law.
That is so cool.
Are you still married?
So far. So far. Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to grab me.
All right.
How's it going? Like, just like.
Item number 2 is a resolution of the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment to Central Farm and Garden for both baseball field product and turf product from the following funds in an amount not to exceed a total of $15,030.40.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 3 is simply a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to accept a donation of a flat screen TV at the estimated value of $700 from the Canton Soccer Referees Association for use at Diamond Community Park for the purpose of instruction, education, and monitoring.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Just a, special heartfelt thank you
Yeah.
to Canton Soccer Referees Association for that donation, I mean, to,
So we've developed a great partnership with them, and that we've developed a mentorship program with young referees where they'll come in and do some meetings and clinics, but we also put them on the field with our rec program in a mentorship fashion with some certified referees, so they can get that certification and experience that they need, and the Referees Association has grown because of it, and that's just their appreciation and thank you for it.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
yes.
Thank you. Parts 4 is a resolution to accept another donation of a replacement for a field door, estimated value of $1,000, for the indoor sports complex at Diamond Park from Mr. Todd Davis for the purpose of safe entry and exit onto the field.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, you can keep these donations coming.
I will do my best. This is actually a gentleman who plays in a couple of our adult leagues indoor. As you remember, a couple of years ago, we had a door that was kind of wrecked, and we had to replace it. All we could find was the field board. This gentleman's company that he owns actually does it, and he just said to get the door back where it needs to be, he'd donate the time and effort himself to do it, and we saw
That's
him love
awesome.
to have you do it.
Yeah, and again, like the other, just make sure we let them know our appreciation. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 5 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to approve an authorized payment to Advanced Turf Solutions for ball field conditioner and then also seed and fertilizer for the ball, for the ball fields as well, from Fund 14A08, in an amount not to exceed $81,8150.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, item number 6 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees. Whereas the Parks Department desires financial assistance under the Nature Works Grant Program by Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Be it further resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees that 1, the Board of Trustees approves the filing of this application for financial assistance. 2, the Plain Township Park Director is hereby authorized and directed to execute and file an application with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to provide all information and documentation required to become eligible for possible funding assistance. And 3, that the Plain Township Board of Trustees does agree to obligate the funds required to satisfactorily complete the proposed project and become eligible for reimbursement under the terms of the Nature Works Grant Program from Fund 01F02P, Improvement of Sites, Paved Parking Lot, Alpine.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion,
This would be the north lot at Alpine. And as we know, Joe's done a great job with grindings and rolling them, and we've striped and put even handicap spots up. But you just see, because of the usage and the growth and volume of usage of the park as a whole because of the new playground, there's a need for safety to have that made.
Yeah, and the one thing is that park has been made all-inclusive
Correct.
for all ages, abilities. And that's the one piece of the park that is not, it is not safe to traverse that parking lot if you are, have a visual impairment, or you use a wheelchair or a walker or a cane, or you have a sight impairment. So we'd like to get that whole park all-inclusive.
good. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you, that concludes Parks.
Thanks, Rob, that takes state communications.
Thank you. I will combine communication A and B together. Just so the board knows, one of us graduated summa cum laude and the other barely got in. So no, there is no summa
Congrats
cum
on
laude.
summa cum laude.
I'm just saying, I've been here 6, you've been here 13.
No, honestly, it's
She has MD.
I have a PhD.
Juris Doctorate.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's a congratulations to both myself and Rob for, really, it was completing the Ohio Township Association Leadership Academy. They stated this accomplishment is proof of our commitment in continuing education and willingness to work towards offering the best services possible to those in our township. So, like some of our trustees, we have completed that OTA Leadership Academy.
Very good.
Very good, congratulations.
I noticed
Dr. Campbell.
Rob doesn't have a passing score on his bill.
Yeah, of course, thanks, Eric. And our thanks for that is that they now said they're going to launch a Leadership 2 Academy.
And we can't wait.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a very good experience. A huge thanks to the board for allowing us to attend those classes, but it was a very good experience.
And that's
It's not easy.
logistically, it's not easy
No.
because you only have so much time to do it, and they don't offer every class
No.
in 1 year, and then the one you have to take that is really difficult to get is that national
National
one,
class.
and they only offer that like one time a year.
It is once a year that they
So
offer it,
that's
so.
not an easy thing to do if you're trying to get on that schedule, so. Good job on that, congratulations.
Thank you, good job, Rob.
All right, so, and I skipped the law director, but you had nothing, right?
I did not.
We gotta come back, we need to come back to him.
So, yeah, maybe let's do that now.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do, I think the first opportunity is for me to have a short discussion about it with you in executive, because I have legal opinions that I want to give you that I want to protect.
All right.
And it's already on your executive session topic, so it's covered there from the
Okay,
list.
I got it,
Good job,
right.
Eric.
So then that takes us to the approval of minutes for the March 12th. And
Also move.
I'll second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call,
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
yes. And we do have a need, I'm sorry, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board at this time? Seeing none,
Jessica?
we will, and no concerns of the fiscal officer, I've already approved the minutes, so we do have a need for executive session. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 7:05 PM from this regular meeting of March 26th. It's authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of 1B, employment of a public employee or official, and 1F, compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.